Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. Boy, that was a Freudian slip right there, wasn't it? I'm Randall Carlisle along with Rachel Santizo. You know why I'm so happy today, Rach?
Why?
Because it's another day sober for me. So,
I thought that was the best introduction you've done.
yes, maybe we should change the name to Odyssey House Journals, an addiction of whatever. But you and I we are both in recovery, and you and I both have similar birthdays, don't we?
We do.
How
Absolutely.
long?
9 years this year, Randall. We're turning 9.
9 years. I know that's a lot to celebrate. 9 years for me in July. So,
Yeah.
what month?
Mine was March. It's actually on Pi Day, 3/14. I didn't even know it was Pi Day until I got sober.
Yeah, but you enjoyed the pie and beer day at the time, right?
Just the beer, but now I enjoy the pie.
What do you? We start out every show with you talking about your T-shirt. What does it say?
So the shirt that I'm wearing today it's about like respect and change, right? Like equality. And I thought it was appropriate to wear it because I stand for equality on all levels, and breaking down stigmas and bringing that we're all human beings, regardless of occupation or past or anything. Like, we are human beings at the end of the day. And so I felt it was appropriate to wear for our guests today and stand for that.
Boy, you portray positive images all the time, don't you?
I
And,
tried.
and speaking of that, I don't know if you saw the news story recently, but the Utah Supreme Court struck a blow in favor of transgender people. They ruled that it's okay if you want to change your birth certificate to whatever sexual identity you have. So
Wow.
you can change your name and your birth and the sex where it marks it on your birth certificate. So
Change.
there you go. That's all right. Hey, I hear you have a great guest today.
I do. I am so excited for our guest today. So this gentleman, I see him every Saturday. We work out together, and he is actually a police officer here in Utah, and we have commonality, and he is just an all-time incredible man and leader. And so I'm super excited to announce John Beck.
Come on down, John. Oh, I can tell he works out. Look at the size of the arms and everything. I don't think I would want to mess with John.
It keeps me out of trouble sometimes. It definitely helps for sure. I just want to thank you guys so much for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here with you, and be able to talk about my path in recovery and my journey here so far, which isn't very long here in recovery, but I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
I think it's admirable, really admirable for a police officer to come forward and talk about recovery, because we're all human beings and we all suffer from, some of us more than others, addiction issues, and it's great that you've come forward. Tell us a little about your story.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy to come, forward, especially being, the personality that I am, and not wanting to, portray anything negative, and having a lot of, guilt and shame in my addiction. But I think it's really important to be able to, share my story in hopes that, anybody else in my profession that might be struggling, as well as hopefully maybe give some insight, into my professional and the kind of the people behind the badge, because there's been, it's been a hard year for everybody in this country, both law enforcement and not. And so, anytime I can try to maybe put a little bit of humanization behind the uniform, I'm really happy to do that. Also, as well, maybe to help another person that may be struggling. So for me, I started my path to recovery a couple of years ago. I've been sober now for 8 months. I just passed this last month, so pretty short time here in recovery for me. But it started about a year before that, was when I initially decided to get sober. So for me, alcohol was always a way for me to kind of decompress and calm down, after a shift. We tend to really operate on kind of a higher pace throughout our shifts. And I've kind of picked different careers within law enforcement that kind of elevate, those types of scenarios on a daily basis for me, kind of along the lines of SWAT and working in narcotics and gang work. And so it was really just a common thing for me for a really long time to come home. And if I didn't have an operation happening that night or something going on, is I would drink. And you spend a long enough time doing that.
People don't realize what kind of high stress. I mean, if they could put themselves in your shoes, you talked about SWAT and narcotics and things like that. And that's got to be, and that's like an everyday occurrence for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely what, the career path that I chose to get into. And it was something that I really love to do. But yeah, you spend your career chasing, violent people and, having to kind of have, a certain preparation in your mind every day. And it can just be exhausting, and you do that for years on end and it, it can definitely take a toll on you. But, definitely when you start adding, a substance as a self-medication, it can work really well for a long time until it becomes a problem. And that's exactly what happened for me. So it became something that it was just, it changed from a habit to an addiction. And, it got to the point for me where either I had to make a choice that, I was going to follow that path of an alcoholic and potentially lose everything that I had, worked so hard for in my life, or I was going to choose to get sober and better myself and try to be a better husband and father.
I'm listening to your story and I can relate so much because I was a TV anchor for a long time, and the most important thing we did, and I'm not saying that anchoring a 10 o'clock newscast is the same as going out on a SWAT call, but it was the same kind of thing where I had to be so up and you have to be so ready to go with the flow during a newscast, and it was mentally exhausting every day. And I did the exact same thing that you described. I'd go home and I'd start drinking, then I'd start drinking more and more and more, and it became a problem in my life. And I waited decades to solve it, and I went through 4 wives. So you're lucky that you caught it early. So how did you go about recovering?
So, I definitely knew that I had a problem, and, it was really starting to affect, the people close to my life, where, I was choosing to drink and lay that responsibility of everything else on my wife, and it wasn't that, I wasn't there, but, a lot of times I wasn't necessarily there mentally because I was drinking and I was numbed out. And so, once it got to the point where, my days where I wasn't drinking and I never went to work drunk or anything like that, but, it was something that I thought about every day while I was there and looking forward to getting home and being able to have that first drink. And I started taking time off from work because I didn't want to go, a day with being sober. So I choose to take a day off from work and drink. And, I knew that it was to the point where it was going to negatively impact my marriage. I definitely wasn't being, the father and the role model that I wanted to be in my life. And, I truly love what I do. And it was going to get to the point where it was going to affect those things in my life. And I had to make that decision where, I had to do something. And, initially I just tried to do it myself. And it was a lot of white knuckling it and not talking to anybody. There's a stigma, especially with maybe people with my type of personality, type A personality, where I don't want to talk to people, and there's nothing wrong with me. And, everybody's been through traumatic events, and, other people can get through it without doing anything. And so, you deal with a lot of those things over a career as a cop, and they tend to really weigh on you. And so it just got to the point where I knew I couldn't do it by myself. And, it took me going to a detox facility and just completely having to remove it from my life altogether, which I didn't know how to do that. And whether it was big or small, or, month gaps in sobriety, I didn't really know how to do that without any help. And so, I wasn't successful. I would go, a few months without anything, and then I would relapse. And it really got to the point where until I started talking to, a therapist and a psychiatrist, and really understanding, the root causes of addiction, and how to have all these tools to be successful in recovery, that I actually started doing well. And, one of those big things for me was having a recovery group like FTR that I could go to, and just being able to share that awesome experience that Ian has created over there. And it's been such an important part of my recovery, is that I'm not doing any of this stuff by myself, and it's just not possible if I do. So, I'm very lucky that I had such amazing support from my family and my wife. Never lost faith in me, or faltered in her love for me. And so, that was a big part for me, is that, it was wanting to do it for myself, but, also for my family. So it's
two
just,
things.
and this understanding that I couldn't do it by myself.
We should probably explain for people who have never heard of FTR what it stands for. And when you were talking about Ian, you can explain it all, and the fact that you and Rachel are workout buddies at FTR.
Yes, we are. So FTR it stands for Fit to Recover. It is a gym amongst many things, but as a place for anybody in any stage of recovery that can come and learn how to do difficult things by yourself and with a group of people, and an amazing support system. And so I don't know if I don't know if words can really express everything that FTR does and what Ian and Rachel and everybody has created there. But it is an amazing community for people in recovery, and it's an asset for hundreds and hundreds of people here.
Yeah, I think the greatest part is profession aside. Like when you come in, when we're all in a circle together, and we have people that could be running from the law, like we're so used to that, like we're scared of it. But when you go in on Saturday morning, all you do is hug. John is hugging everyone and supporting everyone. Like we are all there regardless. Like we have this commonality, and we get to come together because we all have the guilt, the shame, everything that John's explaining. And it doesn't matter if you're behind a badge or what outfit you're wearing or any uniform, like we're all just human beings. And that's the most magical part that we bring to that.
It really is. And, there's, you talk about, most of the people there being on the other side of the law. And, I've never felt a day of judgment as far as what I do for an occupation. And I really hope that everybody else there feels that there's not a judgment for me, for being on the other side of that profession. And, addiction is addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs. And, I don't have that experience being on that side of drugs, but, addiction's addiction, and what it does to your life, and the things you go through. It doesn't matter, where you come from or what you've done. It's, you're all in that same program together. And I think
it's a humbling experience, I think, for all of us when we finally come to terms with it. I'm curious, because I was so unsuccessful with wives, how your wife responded to sobriety, and how important was it? You mentioned that she had, enduring love throughout the whole fiasco or the whole struggle that you went through. How did she respond, and how important was that?
She supported me at everything I've done in my life. We've been together for 14 years. We've been married for it'll be 11 years this year. And so, it started with her just having support in me before I even chose to become an officer, because we were married, and I was working a completely different profession when I decided to get into law enforcement. And she always stood by me, and and stood by my decisions to get into the type of work that I did. And, you know, it never really changed, you know, and you know, I was doing stuff that, you know, that wasn't healthy for me. It didn't matter how much I worked out every day, you know, or tried to keep myself physically fit. If I was doing stuff to destroy myself every day, but it would affect everything else in my life, you know? And so I think that she just knew that, you know, even though I was stuck in, you know, a dark place, that she was willing to support me. And I, you know, honestly, like, I don't know how she just did it for me all the time. You know, I would like to think that I could be that same person for her, but she's so much stronger than I am. And, you know, she was just, you know, just having that support there through this process, knowing that I could go and seek treatment, and that she was right there with me this whole process was amazing. So, you know, she as a person has been as much of a success in my recovery as anybody. And so, like, when you say I don't know how she did it, I don't know. She just has that type of personality, and that she was just willing to do anything to make sure that, you know, we succeeded as a family. And you know, she's been my #1 fan. You know, her and my mom, you know, but definitely my #1 fan through this whole process. And, you know, there's not a week that goes by that she isn't, you know, tell me, you know, how proud she is of me, of where I've come in the last year. So I don't know how she does it. Like, I can't, you know, I can't explain her superhuman abilities at this point, but you know, it's just having that support has been such a huge, you know, part of my life. And I don't think I could have done it without her. So, you know, I know there's a lot of people that go through this process and they don't have those support systems because maybe there was just too many bridges that got burned in that process. And I don't know how a lot of these people do it and stay so successful, because they do it, I mean, really by themselves, outside of, you know, the group support that they get. But very, very fortunate to, you know, still have a loving family, still have a profession that I love going to work every day and doing, and being able to work with people, and then be in this amazing, you know, recovery community as well.
Yeah, she definitely is an empowering, beautiful woman that gives the best hugs. So shout out
Yes.
for that.
Yes, she does.
How, how does like recovery kind of like transform over into your profession? Is it easy, you know, when you see somebody that's stronger, you see somebody that's high, do you feel like you deal or handle it differently because you have an understanding now?
You know, I've always been, you know, a very fair person when it comes to the way that I police. And, you know, I don't, it definitely, like, the understanding of addiction has made a big difference in, you know, my response to how I deal with that kind of stuff. But, you know, I don't think it ever changed the fact that I just try to treat every person as a human being as well, you know, and understand no matter what they're going through, that there's still, you know, there's, you know, no matter what's happened or what's going on, that they're, you know, there's still a person in there, you know, past all the actions and the substance that, that you can try to connect to. And so, you know, if you keep, you know, if you keep that stuff in mind, and you know, you try to treat every situation that way, I think that it helps. But I mean, obviously, you know, being around the recovery group and getting to know, you know, people behind the addiction has definitely helped me understand all those things that, you know, that those people may be going through. So it doesn't change the fact that, you know, I have to do things, you know, that you know, that are part of my job, like taking action and making arrests and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that you have to be awful to people. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you can't treat them the same way that you would want to be treated. So
How do you, it's no secret that people who have been busted for drugs in the past do not have a positive image of law officers. Have you run into, like, when you go to a place like FTR, I'm sure they know what your profession is. Do you
yeah.
get any kind of negative feedback from them because they've thought, you know, cops are bad people because they've always been throwing me in jail and causing trouble for me?
Yeah. You know, honestly, it was a huge concern for me to do anything like that, just because of, you know, me wanting to feel safe and always putting myself in a situation where I have control. And so, you know, initially in my recovery, like, knowing about FTR, and thinking, hey, that sounds really cool, but I'm not going to go do that because it, it scares me to not know what it's going to be like there. And, maybe there's people there that may have, a negative, belief or experience with law enforcement, and they may have those thoughts when, they see an officer there, whether they know or not, or they know someone's there that is. I think that they spend the hour there, and see how, I guess I am, and how everybody else there, I guess, interacts with everybody, that just kind of goes away. So it just took that leap of faith for me to do that. And I think it really takes that leap of faith for them to do the same thing, where they just have to put those thoughts aside and then just do it, and hope for the best. And it just works, And so I was so scared myself, to be there and not know, these guys going to want to beat me up. Like, what's going on here? Are they just going to hate me? Are they going to hate my guts being there? Like, I don't want to be in a room full of people trying to work out that all hate me. But gosh, it was never that way. Rachel just, she reached out to me the first day there. Ian reached out to me my first day there. They're just like, God, we're so happy you're here. I was really open about what I did as a profession, and where I was at in my recovery. And the rest was just history, And so, it didn't matter at that point, because we were all just people there, And so I guess that experience with FTR and trying to be vulnerable and not knowing what's going on has really put me in a position where, I can help other people in my profession try to seek help. And I've been able to do that since then. And that's probably been the most rewarding experience, is to try to say, hey, if I can do this, and, I could admit that, I had an issue and there was a lot of other stuff going on in my life with PTSD and everything. And I can get to a place where, like, I'm happy and I'm growing and I'm progressing, and you can do the same thing.
Are there other officers who have to deal with addiction? I would presume there are.
Tons. I mean, I can't even tell you how common of a thing it is for officers to do exactly what I did every day. And because it works, it works for so many people, that they're able to go home and they're able to turn off that hyper awareness and being able to relax by putting a substance in your body. That it's a huge problem, in our community, because of what we do. And and especially when you compound that stuff, like with addiction, with post-traumatic stress, it's just a nasty combination. And so I think that it's, like me, it's really hard to talk about it, and it's really hard to admit you have a problem, and nobody wants to say anything because they're concerned it's going to affect their career, and they're not going to be put in positions where, they're doing that stuff on a daily basis, because there's that lack of trust. But, it couldn't be farther from the truth. But yes, it's a huge issue all over the country. I'm sure all over the world, but definitely here. It's a huge issue. And so I'm lucky that I work for a department that is really proactive in understanding that this is, mental health and substance abuse is a very big reality in law enforcement, and they're just willing to support and offer as much support and help as they can, and have, people that's all they do is just work that kind of stuff in the department and get people the help they need is pretty incredible. So just to be a tool in that little belt that they have there, and be able to go there and try to relay my experience and help other people has been amazing. So, but yes, it's a huge problem.
Well, I'm glad that you have taken that step, and I'm glad that you show up every Saturday. And I value and I honor you as the man you are, and the husband and father, and also what you do in our community. Like, you're painting a different light, a light that's necessary and needed. And so I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you came on the show.
It must, this past year, you mentioned it at the beginning, has been so stressful in terms of a lot of the major news stories that have occurred all around the country. And I can understand, more than most people, how you want to numb yourself at night when things like this go on. And we had some incidents, in Utah as well. So if you don't go home and numb yourself with alcohol, how do you deal with the stress that you're dealing with?
it's just learning, and so it was really hard for me for the first little while because that was what I had done for so long and it worked for me for so long that that's just gone all of a sudden. And it really increased my anxiety, not knowing what to do. But it's just something you have to learn over time. And, there's not an easy fix to it. There's not a magical pill that fixes all these things, but, you just start working these things that work for you, like, coming home and spending time with your family and working on mindfulness exercises. For me, the biggest thing has always been exercise. And, it doesn't really matter, what kind of state of mind I'm in. Even when I was in my addiction, if I can go and get a really good workout, that there's nothing that compares to that stress relief and that ability to kind of decompress after a good workout that I'd always get. And so, but you can't go home at 1 a.m. and do a 2-hour. I guess you could. I don't know how healthy that would be every day, but it just took learning, and putting all these things in place. That I'd like to say that I go home and meditate and do all these things that, people talk about, but it just doesn't work for me. I can't sit with myself for that long and feel okay, but I can just sit and try to relax and maybe watch TV and listen to music and hang out with my family. And so, I just replace those bad addiction things with things that are positive in my life. And over time, that becomes, my routine and it's worked for me. So, but I have to surround myself with people that are on that same path. Otherwise, I'm not going to be successful if I try to do it by myself.
I've got to tell you, I admire you for being in the position you're in and being willing to come on a podcast that's all about addiction and recovery and talk about your profession as well as your addiction and how you're solving it, because you don't see that very often. Did it take some courage to even agree to do this? Or did Rachel persuade you?
Well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, but she's been such a huge asset for me in my recovery that, anything that I could try to do to return the favor. And, even if it changes the opinion of one person by me, being able to come on here and speak, then I've done my job. As much hate and misunderstanding as there is on both sides of my profession, from the profession and the people that are protesting us and hating us. If, as much as I can try to do to spread, understanding and compassion and facts of what's actually happening, then, the better we're going to be at tomorrow. So yeah, it's not easy to be here. I'm scared of who might, log on here and look at this and be like, holy crap. Yeah, there he is, but, I know that I'll be in a better place. And, in 5 minutes from doing this than I would have if I just sat here at my house this morning and not done anything. So, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and just talk to you guys and I guess spread my message, whatever that is at this point.
My hero, you are incredible through and through. Thank you.
And the bottom line that I wish people would realize when all this controversy swirls that's swirling right now is that we're all human beings. Cops are human beings. The protesters are human beings. No matter where you stand on the whole issue, we're all human beings and we all have human problems. And addiction is a human problem. And it doesn't matter. You could be I'm not saying the president of the United States, but you could be the president and have an addiction issue, all the way down to maybe the people at the homeless encampments that you guys run into. But we're all just human beings. That's important to remember.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
John,
absolutely. Nothing's going to get fixed overnight in what we do, but we just got to keep, trying to move forward in a positive direction every day, and we'll get there eventually.
You've been a wonderful spokesperson for law enforcement and humanity and recovery, which is what this podcast is all about. So thank you very much for being here. Rachel, any final word?
Oh, thank you. I have been waiting for this to happen. It's so important that we do just spread love and humanity, and we do it together. So I'm so honored to be here with both of you.
Well, you guys have fun on Saturday, okay?
We will.
Rachel,
right. See you tomorrow morning.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for watching Odyssey House Journals.